Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. As you know, I'm Josh Harris, and I'm honored today to present two speakers. The first is Pao Chew from the Asian Film Archive. Um, Pao has been with the Asian Film Archive since 2009. As senior archivist, Pao plans AFA's preservation strategies and oversees the development of film collections. Um, as well as curating various film programs to showcase these collections. He selects and oversees AFA's film restorations, including works like Mike De Leon's Batch 81 and Dharmasena Pathiraja's Bamboo Aves, which was selected for Cannes Classic in 2020. His publications on film preservation include an article in Nang magazine and a co-written chapter on independent digital filmmaking and its impact on film archiving in Singapore for the book Singapore Cinema, New Perspectives in 2017. I encourage all of you to check out any of these because they're fantastic. So Pao, take it away, or let's play the presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pao, and I am an archivist at the Asia Film Archive in Singapore. I'm sorry I can't be there in person for the IASA Sibava conference, but I'm glad to share this pre-recorded presentation with you. I look forward to joining the panel discussion after I founded AFA approached the Cathay organization to assess and collect nearly 800 reels, though only 30 reels though over 30 reels had to be discarded due to advanced chemical decay. Today, no negatives survive, only release prints. This illustrates that even films owned by established and still active companies are at risk of neglect. Commercial organizations may hold the rights to these films, but without active preservations, their films can just as easily be lost as independent or marginal works. The significance of this collection has since been recognized internationally with its inscription onto the UNESCO Memory of the World Asia-Pacific Register in 2014. A very different example is Ring of Fury, that is Singapore's first independently produced martial arts film. Made in 1973, the film was banned reportedly for its portrayal of vigilantism and as a result quickly disappeared from circulation. The film survived only because the lead actor of the film held onto a single release print for over 3 decades. Although the classification guidelines in Singapore had already progressed earlier, it was only in 2005 that someone took the initiative to track down the film, allowing it to be publicly screened for the first time. In 2008, the lead actor deposited this only known print to exist with the AFA. We eventually digitized the print and restored the film in 2016, allowing the film to be preserved and eventually reintroduced to audiences. Ring of Fury shows how fragile unseen parts of film history can be. And when a film is banned or never shown, it becomes almost invisible, and it takes extraordinary personal commitment and eventually an archives intervention for it to resurface. While Ring of Fury shows how censorship can bury a film for decades, They Call Her Cleopatra Wong represents a different type of disappearance, a cult genre film that faded into obscurity despite its popularity. Made in 1978 as a co-production between Singapore and the Philippines, Cleopatra Wong blended martial arts, spy, and pulp exploitation tropes. At that time, it was marketed as Southeast Asia's answer to Bruce Lee and James Bond, and it traveled widely in international grindhouse circuits. Decades later, it even caught fresh attention from Quentin Tarantino when he cited the film as one of its inspiration for his Kill Bill film series. But despite the film's cult reputation, it was not preserved. And for many years, only low resolution quality films copies on DVDs and Betacams were circulated. With no known negatives, the Asian Film Archive had to look internationally for surviving prints. And thanks to the help from international partners, in 2017, we located two valuable sources: a 35mm German dub release print at Film Archive Austria, and a 16mm print with Danish subtitles at the Danish Film Institute. We restored a fully reassembled version by combining the two elements, where one source was missing a shot, we filled it in with material from the other. Part of why the film slipped through the cracks is its transnational character. The film was made in English with an international cast and a Singaporean actress in the title role. The Filipino director Bobby Suarez specialized in English language genre films aimed at the international market. Because of this, Cleopatra Wong never really fit neatly into either the Singapore's or the Philippines' national cinema traditions. It was not firmly claimed by either, and as a result, it was never collected or safeguarded by national institutions. The only reason the film survived is because during its European distribution decades earlier, archives such as the Film Archive Austria and the Danish Film Institute acquired release prints as part of their broader practice of collecting foreign films. So these prints sat quietly in their collections for years until the AFA was able to locate them and reassemble a composite restoration. This case reminds us that survival of such works often depends on unexpected contingencies and that international collaboration is essential to bring them back into view. We also preserve the works of Rajendra Gore, who is one of Singapore's pioneering independent short filmmakers of the late 1960s and 70s. Rajendra Gore was a new immigrant from India when he settled in Singapore and began making his own short films. His works were highly personal and experimental, created outside of the studio system and entirely self-funded at a time where there was very little support for independent productions. Although some of his films traveled to festivals in the UK and the US during the time, they were later stored privately by the filmmaker himself, unseen and largely unknown to wider audiences for decades. The connection with AFA came about quite serendipitously, as Rajendra Gore first spent time as a volunteer with the archive during his retirement years. And it was during this period that we learned about his filmmaking. This discovery unearthed another unseen strand of Singapore's film history, one that had not been publicly acknowledged or systematically preserved. Between 2018 and 2021, AFA digitized and restored his surviving films, which by then had deteriorated greatly. Sadly, his earliest short film is now considered lost. But by creating long-term preservation copies of what remains, his works can once again be seen and studied, expanding our understanding of Singapore cinema and ensuring the voice of one of its earliest independent and experimental filmmakers is not lost. Rajendra Gore's works have since been presented not only in film screenings, but also in museum and gallery contexts, where they are appreciated as moving image works within a broader artistic and cultural frame. Another striking example is Bambaru Avid, or The Wops Are Here, directed by Dhammasana Patiraja in 1978, a landmark of Sri Lankan cinema. Patiraja is often regarded as a maverick of Sri Lankan film, known for his radical and socially critical style. Patiraja's films, while well known domestically, traveled less widely on the international circuit during its time. His radical, socially critical style that centered on youth, the urban poor, and marginalized communities offered an alternative to the more humanist national cinema of his senior contemporaries, such as Lester James Peary's. Some of Peary's works have been restored, for instance, Nina Naya, by international organizations such as the World Cinema Foundation. By contrast, Patiraja's works, though vital in presenting another vision of Sri Lankan society, had not received similar international restoration attention. In 2017, the reels of Patiraja's films were discovered in Singapore, left with another institution that could no longer provide care. By then, the materials were suffering severe vinegar syndrome, mold, and warping. Of the films recovered, only Bambaru Avid was in suitable condition to be digitized and restored. The restoration was completed in 2020 and selected for Cannes Classics, reintroducing Patiraja's work to the world stage. We are still actively in touch with Patiraja's family and collaborators in Sri Lanka, working to locate surviving elements of his other works, including Pomani, made in 1977, and Soldado Unahe, Old Soldier, made in 1981, which remain incomplete in AFA's collection. Another important dimension of AFA's work is the preservation of diverse perspectives, in which a good example is our collection of films by Hong Kong filmmaker Yao Chin. Yao Chin is a writer, scholar, and filmmaker whose works are experimental in form and explore political and social issues from a queer perspective. They foreground feminist and queer identities and challenge dominant narratives, including what is regarded as the first lesbian feature film of Hong Kong. Such films are often at risk of being overlooked, as National Archives, by their mandate, tend to prioritize heritage titles and canonize works. Independent, experimental, and queer voices have received far less institutional attention, even though they are vital to expanding the documentation of independent filmmaking in Hong Kong. Preserving Yao Chin's films ensures these perspectives remain part of cinematic memory. And as these examples show, the Asian Film Archive's work has been shaped by a few key principles and lessons we've learned along the way. First, all films are vulnerable to neglect. Whether mainstream or independent, if they are not actively preserved, they will eventually slip from view. And today, this is true not only of analog works, but also digital works, where new layers of fragility and complexity come into play. Digital preservation has forced the archive to rethink our collecting guidelines as we navigate the challenges of shifting digital environments. Secondly, collaboration is essential. Dialogue with private owners, filmmakers, and the families and collaborators of filmmakers is often the way hidden works come to light. Families, in particular, play a crucial role, as they're often the ones who inherit and safeguard films after a filmmaker has passed on. Just as important are cross-border partnerships with archives and national institutions, which make preservation possible. National archives, for many reasons, may face limits on what they can collect. With its transnational outlook, AFA can step into these gaps, safeguarding works that might otherwise remain excluded. The role complements rather than replaces the work of national institutions. Third and last, there is no one-size-fits-all. Preservation is not just a technical task, but also an ethical, political, and cultural act. The cases I've shared in this presentation are only a sample of what we've encountered, where each film comes with its own condition and history, whether it be censorship, deterioration, neglect, or fragmentation, and our methods must adapt accordingly. This means recognizing the value of incomplete, orphaned, and forgotten films, and finding flexible ways to care for them, not only those that survive in the ideal form. These experiences also remind us that we are still learning, and that preservation requires balancing structure with flexibility in what we collect, how we preserve it, and how we share it. With that, thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to continue this conversation in the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pao. That was wonderful. Does anybody have any questions? Pao's online, live from Singapore. So we'll open the floor for a couple questions if you have any.
That's the fastest wardrobe change ever.
I'll ask you one then, Pao. How does the AFA how do you prioritize with so many different types of films with varying conditions? How's prioritization generally run there?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I feel that just naturally, I think I shared in the presentation that we tend to prioritize films that are not being preserved elsewhere. And usually in a lot of cases, we do encounter films which no other I guess no other institutions were interested or like were able to, collect them. I think especially those kind of examples that I've shared. But I think more importantly is whether or not at that point in time, we have the means and the ability to actually preserve these materials properly. I mean, the reason why I'm saying this is because we have, for example, collected different types of films. Say they could be Japanese films or even Korean films that were, say, screened in Singapore, but they were just sort of discarded because they were left behind, like say by old cinema. But instead of keeping those films, we know that there were actually other archives, like the National Film Archive of Japan as well as the Korean Film Archive, that would probably be able to take care of these films better than we do because they are already very established, and I think in terms of analog preservation, obviously they're much more established than us and could definitely take greater care. And so I think that's one example in how we actually facilitated this sort of arrangement where we contacted them and asked whether these are films that they're interested to take in, and true enough, actually those prints that were left behind in Singapore were actually very useful for them and actually helped to fill in the gaps in their own collections. But other than that, I mean, how we prioritize is basically, whether or not we have the resources and the ability to actually preserve it. And secondly, is also in terms of whether or not it's being preserved by other archives. And then I guess so. And then after that, we'll look at the kind of significance, whether it be cultural or historical, or aesthetic significance, that we will then apply using our collection guidelines. So that's generally how we prioritize cases that we encounter.
Nice. Thank you. Any other question? Oh yes, please. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, you mentioned that I'm not so crazy about martial arts films, but it was really interesting that the film was banned. I understand censorship in Singapore is complex, but I'm wondering, is that film visible for scholars, or can you do screenings? Has the ban been lifted, or is it still?
You're referring to which film? Ring of Fury? Is that?
You mentioned the early martial arts film in Singapore that was banned, but you said that the actor had one surviving reel. And I was just wondering, it's a lot of investment to preserve, and I was just wondering, is it still banned, or can
Yes.
scholars or
Yeah. So the film was banned in I mean, it was well, they tried to release it in 1973, and then the government at that time reportedly banned it because of the way it portrayed vigilantism. At that time, there were a lot of, I guess, local gangs that were coming out during the 70s, and I think the government was trying to clamp down on the portrayals of such activities in Singapore at that time, and so it was banned. From what I understand, the film, I mean, the the the, the film censorship and I guess the classification guidelines in Singapore progressed since then. So I don't think because I think at that point the filmmakers had already abandoned the film. Like they were like, oh, since it's already banned, we no longer are interested in keeping the film, and so they just left the print with the actor and they just went about with their own lives after that, after the film was banned. And so the actor kept it with him. Uh, uh, well, I think nobody actually bothered to kind of dig out the film again until around 2005 when somebody actually managed to trace down this title and of course the guidelines would have progressed that in such a way that the film is no longer uh, you know containing objectionable content and so essentially it was no longer a ban for the film, and so the film was just screened as such. But there wasn't really any like uh I guess content that the authorities should be concerned right now, because looking back, actually, to me it's a very interesting case study because um the film itself, the filmmakers actually self-censored the film in a way to get away from the authorities, but it was still banned. This self-censored version was still banned. Uh, but in any case, yeah, I mean the film is available. We've restored it in 2016 using this only print, and yeah, we've shown it. In fact, during the years of COVID itself, what we did was we actually uploaded the whole film onto our YouTube channel. Actually, it created a really fantastic renewed interest in the film because people were actually people were I think we saw people actually uploading their own commentary on it on YouTube. So it's very interesting. I think we gathered like 150,000 views or something. It was amazing. For such a very rare obscure Singaporean film, which of course by many standards I don't think we can compare it to like say the actual Bruce Lee films from Hong Kong, but I think it's such a historically significant um, piece of work that I don't think we had that this part of our history, which is certainly very important for us to showcase.
Great. Thank you so much, T-Pao. Any other questions? I think in the interest of time, we're gonna move on to Rose's. I should also mention that Asian Film Archive and Karen Chen and T-Pao are very long time SIPAVA members and have been very supportive of SIPAVA for many years. So it's very appreciated their contributions to the region as well. Okay, so moving on to another important SIPAVA member. I'm proud to introduce Rosemarie Roque. She's an associate professor of the Department of Filipinology at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. and currently serves as director of the University Records Management Office. She's currently pursuing her second master's degree in Library and Information Science at the University of the Philippines School of Library and Information Studies. She's been an individual member of IASA since January 2019 and associate member of CIPAVA since 2017 and currently serves on our executive council. She's been board president of the Society for Filipino Archivists for Film, SOFIA, since 2022. And from 2017 to 2022, she served as SOFIA's representative to the National Committee on Archives of the National Commission for Culture and the Arts in the Philippines, holding the positions of Assistant Secretary and Secretary of the Executive Committee. Proud to hand it over to Rose.
Hi, good morning from the Philippines. I wish I can join you there, but I'm equally happy to still be here, though online. So, yeah. So I'll be, oops, let me read my presentation. So, preserving people's struggle, climate memory, and cultural identity through the audiovisual works of Alternative Horizons. So, wait, I'll just have to. There. So, quickly, a content advisory. This presentation contains sensitive testimonies, though not very detailed, of violence, displacement, and repression. The graphic images will be shown, but some accounts may still be distressing. They are shared here as part of historical record and in respect for the communities whose voices are preserved. So, introduction. In the Philippines, where climate vulnerability intersects with political repression and historical distortion, archives take an urgent role in sustaining cultural memory and community agency. Alternative Horizons, or Alter Horizons, a media cooperative active from the late 1980s to early 2000, exemplifies this role. Its audiovisual works documented struggles over land, livelihood, displacement, and environmental rehabilitation during the fragile post-authoritarian transition. So, Alternative Horizon is founded as a collective of filmmakers, writers, photographers, and artists in 1986. Alter Horizons became a duly registered media cooperative, the first in the Philippines, in 1988. Under the Cooperative Development Authority, it produced documentaries, and some of them are award-winning, docudramas, corporate audiovisual presentations, productions, advocacy videos across a wide range of social issues from labor exploitation and health struggles to environmental preservation and cultural heritage. Its productions consistently garnered recognition, for example, from the Cultural Center of the Philippines and some international bodies. So, what distinguished Alter Horizons was its dual identity, its founders claim. During its existence, a professional cooperative with then can be, during that time, they consider state of the art technical capacity. And on one hand, that means that period having Betacam and pneumatic video systems, nonlinear editing suites, broadcast quality 3D graphics. And on the other hand, a social movement oriented group committed to audiovisual advocacy. By combining creative artistry, technical skill, and political commitment, the cooperative became a pioneering force in alternative media production in the Philippines during the post-Marcos transition. In my previous presentations in Sipava and even IASA, I have been highlighting another group, Asia Visions. Now it's Alter Horizons. So recognized by the Gawad Cultural Center of the Philippines for alternative films and video, their audiovisual works, Kaigorotan, which I will discuss later, Kaigorotan, A People's Vision, made in 1986, IR, or Internal Refugees, A Loss of Roots, made in 1989, and The Greening of Libertad, made in 1992, survive today through personal archiving. Together, these three, they preserve testimonies excluded from mainstream discourse while modeling how grassroots narratives can be sustained through audiovisual archives. So as I've said, the three titles, so together they're a testimony, they're symbolizes resilience and adaptation. So Kaigorotan, I will first show you the screenshots. So it's really magnetic from the look. And okay, so I'll read from here. It tackles first indigenous land defense and ecological threats. The film situates the Cordillera at the heart of conflict over dams, mining, and militarization. Community voices link land to cultural survival, insisting that ancestral territories are the very essence of Igorot existence. Elders emphasize strengthening the DAPI, or what they call the peace pact system, as intertribal defense against projects like the Chico River Dam, a dam built during the Marcos Sr. Regime, and the Celluphil Resources Corporation. So it's a mining corporation. Another important matter discussed in the documentary is the cultural misrepresentation and the concern of autonomy. Igorots decry the commercialization of their rituals and the imposition of curricula that dismiss indigenous knowledge. That time, a call for Cordillera Autonomous Region became both political and cultural, a claim to dignity, identity, and participation in shaping their development. We have a regional formation now, the Cordillera Autonomous Region, but of course their issues remain valid until today. Militarization and resistance, despite the fall of Marcos Sr., militarization persisted under the next president, Corazon Aquino. Testimonies expose ongoing abuses and they demand demilitarization at that time. The people frame peace as inseparable from justice, asserting that autonomy within a sovereign nation is the only way to end cycles of repression. And they also they assert self-determination. Well, it also shows a fracture between the Igorots, because there's a group that is represented, or people represented by the revolutionary movement, the Communist Party of the Philippines and the New People's Army on one hand, and on the other hand, the Cordillera People's Liberation Army that pushes for federalism or even secession. So scholars like, we can see here, Professor William Henry Scott, a very dear scholar on Cordillera studies, questioned whether a Cordillera nation had historical basis. These debates reveal the contested meanings of self-determination, because it never happened a Cordillera nation never happened. We were colonized right away um, by the Spaniards for 333 years, for example. So cultural survival, despite divisions, the people named themselves and their homeland Kaigorotan, expressing an emergent collective identity and vision of justice rooted in ancestral domain. So next is these are just my slides that I talked about. Yeah, our land is our life. Without it, we are nothing. So now IR, or internal refugees, a loss of roots, made in 1989. So these are the screenshots. So they have hard-coded English subtitles, because the language in the documentary is, even I can't, because it's Ilocano. It's not Tagalog or Filipino, it's Ilocano. It's the language of the north part, the regional lingua franca of the northern part of the Philippines. So this talks about the being bakwet. Bakwet is from the word evacuees. So they were constantly moving. Big they were uprooted because of militarization. So they have that, and to depict the narratives, there they have drawings in the documentary, a sample of this. This one, they have a graphic photo of the dead, but I didn't put it. So, but that part we can see the family that was killed. So, so these are the evacuees. They're cramped in small houses where they were forced to transfer to, and even the support, those who give support are harassed. So the quotes you can see from here. So yeah. And even those giving support, they felt they really had to adjust to the people, because people don't know who are their friends or their enemies. So that's why there's a quote there that we are not the group terrorizing them. It's the the human rights worker speaking. So our plight is is linked to our struggle for land. So that's very emphasized in this documentary. And yes, what I like in the screenshot are women. It's another, there's a good documentary made in recent years, Bontoc Rapeless. It talks about the why women are the ones, for example, yeah, mainly doing farm work in the Bontoc. Now, the Igorots, you can see also the women as a very big role in farming, associated with fertility. So so I'll just, yeah, leave it here. So to quickly summarize what you saw, talks about the disappearances and arrests. So the film chronicles widespread abductions and arrests. There were mothers who spoke, how, like for example, their children left for school and never returned. There were women who testified about arbitrary arrests and disappearances, which targeted entire tribes on the suspicion that they are sympathizers of the New People's Army. Destruction of homes and livelihoods. There were testimonies of houses being burned, tools and food destroyed, children terrorized by armed men. So essentially, how militarization dismantled their subsistence life. So the fear, the displacement, the existence of internal refugees. So Attorney Pablito Sanidad, one of the lawyers giving free assistance to the internal refugees, contextualizes this as the production of internal refugees, or IR, civilians displaced within national borders, yet enduring conditions like international refugees. So, as I've said, there's a portion on massacres and bombings. So the documentary documented the massacres and bombings in Isabela. It's a province in North Luzon also, which with civilians killed, women traumatized, and families crammed into schools as evacuation center. So it also talks about life in evacuation sites, militarization as policy. What is most important is their collective survival. Amid trauma, displaced communities they practice collective farming and voice demands for peace and land. So songs embedded in the film function as cultural memory, affirming resilience. So these are the highlights. So we ran with nothing but the clothes on our backs as an evacuee. Yeah. So I'll just show this a short clip. Pagilian, anakayanaka, dagiti tawang, anyati
Intay ba pusan tapno nagibusen talulwa nagsaen apan panunoten imanalun amay narumen mailumlum iti kapitakan bigat aging gana iti malem
nagapom ije boskalan ket numay panggap iti panagtrabaho ije boskalan ket kanya-kanya. Idi umay kami ditoy ket dayta ti nangalam iti adal nga mayat nga panagkaykaysa nga idi umay kami ditoy mas napairot nga nagkaykaysa kami nga umay ditoy anunang gapu iti panagtrabaho iti naduma-duma nga trabaho kas iti uma ken daduma pa nga trabaho nga awan ti kanya-kanya nga trabaho no di ket panagtinulong ti ikastami nga agtatrabaho ditoy.
Okay. So, oh, sorry. So now, we talk about, I'll talk about the greening of Libertad, the last documentary that I'll feature or highlight. So the case study now is the greening of Libertad, a 1992 documentary made by Alter Horizons. So it talks about ecological crisis in Libertad Antique. Antique, it's a province, an island province in Visayas of the Philippines. Decades of logging and kaingin, or the slash and burn, left forests barren and rivers silted. Farmers feared desertification if reforestation was not undertaken. So the film highlights the founder, Florencio Tandog, who pioneered tree planting in 1979 from a small nursery. His example grew into the Libertad Planters Association by 88, with thousands of seedlings and over 100 members. So extension specialists noted the effectiveness of farmer influencers in spreading technology. So they did tree planting and the sloping agricultural land technology, integrating hedgerows, trees, and short-term crops like kamote and peanuts. Although mahogany is also mentioned, and that could be a discussion, of course, of on the negative effects of mahogany. But yeah, it's captured in the documentary. How the farmers viewed it as, of course, the ease of growing it and the high market value, and that that's the source of their incentives. So Dagyao, Hilo, and Bayanihan. So these are our native languages, native words from different languages in the Philippines, are the concepts upheld in this practice. Reforestation succeeded because it revived Dagyao, or the voluntary communal work, and Hilo, the rotational labor, the local forms of bayanihan. Bayani is a root word for hero. So bayanihan is being together, as in being here for each other. A simple explanation. These traditions ensured collective strength and sustainability, unlike short-lived organization imposed by the government. So it highlighted the challenges they faced, the poverty, the migration, and the threats of log buyers and insecure, especially the insecurity of land tenure, hampered this initiative. Yet the association captured that the documentary persisted, emphasizing self-help and community resilience. So to summarize the vision for the future, these farmers testified that tree planting would restore soil fertility, mitigate floods, and even stabilize climate. So the film closes by positioning Libertad and Antique as a model for global re-greening. They said, however small a patch of earth may be, it is one important step in the journey of regreening this one big planet. So these three documentaries, oh, so these are the screenshots. So okay, so taken together, these three documentaries form a body of audiovisual testimony to people's struggles for land, identity, and survival in the late 20th century Philippines. So we saw Kaigorotan very quickly. It demonstrates how indigenous communities framed environmental defense as cultural survival, exposing tensions in autonomy and unity. IR, A Loss of Roots, reveals the violence of militarization, documenting displacement, massacres, and resilience. And The Greening of Libertad offers a counterpoint of constructive agency, showing how grassroots solidarity regenerated an ecologically degraded community. So just a quick idea of the individual the individual steward of the collection. So Jose Fernandez Quaresma, so he's one of the founders of Alter Horizons, in-house director during the existence of Alter Horizons, and he has training in both local and international, of course, institutions, allowed him to bridge commercial and alternative production worlds. So Jocwa's credibility made him a trusted collaborator in both local and international co-productions. Actually, I helped him redigitize the tapes he has, the Umatic tapes he has, like the ones I've showed you. These are all redigitized through my help, but it's mainly still under the actual tapes are kept by Jokwa. So stewardship as archival practice, the intertwining of institutional and individual stewardship underscores that archives are not abstract repositories but lived commitments. During its existence, Alter Horizons maintained a video library of varied interests, while individuals like Jokwa preserves masters and copies across fragile analog formats, whether Betacam, Umatic, VHS, VCD, or DVD. These practices, though informal compared to state archives, were crucial in ensuring the survival of materials now recognized as part of Philippines' documentary heritage. Dominantly analog records, Alter Horizons works are vulnerable to decay and neglect, but their preservation is vital. So preserving people's struggles, climate memory, and cultural identity through the audiovisual works of Alter Horizons is not simply about safeguarding old audiovisual works. It is about sustaining testimonies of resistance, survival, and renewal that remain urgent today. So together, these works reminds us that archives are not just passive containers of the past, but living commitments to justice, resilience, and the memory of communities confronting both repression and environmental crisis. By recognizing and sustaining these fragile audiovisual records, we ensure that climate memory and cultural identity remain vital resources for present and future generations. So by sustaining these archives, we are not only retaining historical records, but recognize the role of stewards in communities in preserving narratives of resistance, resilience, and justice. So just to show, we also did public programs. So we did it in Gathertown before, during the pandemic. We screened The Greening of Libertad and have a talk back in Gathertown. And we had live streaming in Facebook. Kay Gorotan, we had the discussion. And there's Jose Quaresma. Yeah. So yeah, that's I already read that part. And my favorite avatar, yes. So onward, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rose. That was fantastic. Thank you also, T-Pav, both for two amazing presentations. Does anybody have any questions from the floor? Yes, please.
So I had a question. It sounded like the first two films you mentioned both sort of directly addressed the NPA and the Communist Party of the Philippines struggle against the Filipino government. And I was curious if this film collective, it had like a consistent political approach to the NPA or saw itself as trying to address the root causes of that conflict, or kind of what led it to focus its early films on the New People's Army struggle, or areas where it was active or where that conflict was having impacts.
From what I gathered from their stories, they went to the commemoration of Bakliing Dulag, one of the indigenous people's leaders killed during the Marcos period. They commemorate it coincidentally happens April, so like during the Earth Day or Earth Month. So they started commemorating that, and now they call it Cordillera Day. So they featured the very first Cordillera Day after the fall of the dictatorship. So it was the reason why from that event that they covered, they documented the Cordillera Day, the commemoration, continuing commemoration to give justice to the death of Makliing Dulag. They also expounded the issues of the Cordilleras, and that includes, of course, the strong presence of the New People's Army and the Communist Party of the Philippines members. So in the entire documentary, there were also interviews of NPAs and CPP members, and of course the scholars William Henry Scott. Actually, it's I haven't seen any other interview of William Henry Scott, and he's very respected, dear, in especially in North Luzon. A young scholar in the University of the Philippines in Baguio, when she saw that I have that clip in a documentary we're preserving, they're like very happy. So it's very broad. The discussion of Kaigorotan really, it tackled the realities and even the scholarship of rooting the issues of self-determination. So we can't avoid the discussion of the revolutionary struggle in on that aspect.
Thank you, Rose. Anybody else have a question? I have one quick one, and then we'll time's ticking. So one quick question, Rose, is do they have the archive include all of the outtakes and footage from these documentaries? Because I would imagine the raw footage, and the full interviews would be incredibly important part of this if they exist.
From what I understand from Jokwa, so we always until now connect, because I make it a point every time I screen their films, I always tell him, and he always comes to the screening. So very, we have this word walang sawa, meaning you never tired, or you're like in your taste bud, you never get sawa. So anyway, it's like that. So we continuously talk about, and I remembered, I think I believe that he still has those, but the is the preservation standards. I mean, he's been complaining about the molds and that. So when I helped him redigitize the tapes, he was very particular of just redigitizing the final work. But I know that he has, but I can double check. But my worry is, even if they still exist, the state of his house, it's not an archive.
Nor is mine. Thank you so much, Rose and T-Pao. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think we're on to the final closing ceremony. So thank you so much.
See you in November.
Yeah.
At